Cale Green here for the second installment of Cale Reviews. Today, we're going to be doing our second episode due to the resounding success of the first one. We're going to be discussing the Americans for Prosperity Foundation ad, True North. Let's get right into it.
True North means you're headed in the right direction. Juneau had lost its way, wasting $14 billion, your tax dollars. State leaders got us back on track. When government spends wisely, we all succeed. That's True North.
Holy shit, that was a lot of energy. Okay, so the last ad we reviewed was much longer than this. This is a really tight 15 seconds at 24 frames per second. You can see they really tried to get this True North message compounded into the smallest amount of time possible. From my understanding, this was also accompanied with a media buy that went on television. Anytime you deal with television, you're dealing with large dollar signs, even though it's decreasing in comparison to what it used to be, because social media ends up being a really good avenue that's relatively cheap and it gets to be targeted. So Americans for Prosperity is putting out this ad that talks about True North, policies for a path to prosperity. And, it goes on, talks about spending restraints. But what's interesting is that during the ad, there's not a whole lot that's said. We can see they basically go through True North announcing their campaign. The state is headed in the right direction. Juneau lost its way. Now, I do want to take a second here to talk a little bit about the city of Juneau. I don't know if you can see what's going on here, but what's really important in this discussion is that that's not Juneau. That is the city of Ketchikan. See that brown building over there? Whenever it wants to load and render correctly. Okay, that is not a building that exists in Juneau. After talking to someone from Ketchikan, they easily identified that as the Tongass Trading Co. One of these really little things, if you're going to point out a town and say that the city is doing something badly, you should use the right city. I guess I'm a little bit offended because I have a plethora of Juneau footage. Guys, if you ever need some footage of Juneau, I have so much drone footage. It's crazy. But instead they use a really pretty shot of the city of Ketchikan. If I may, Juneau is so lost, according to AFP, that it's actually Ketchikan. That's pretty impressive, Juneau. They say that the state was wasting $14 billion of our tax dollars. I don't think we have the population base to be taxed $14 billion. Either way, and then leaders changed course, and they used dog sled team to illustrate leaders. You see the lead dog right there? Oh man, look at that guy run. There's a different dog. Not all dogs look the same. That one might be the same. Lots of dogs. Oh my god, how many photos are in here? 1, 2, 3, 13 photos in the span of 2 seconds, a little bit less. And then for some reason, hold on one sec. There's just this, there was a hit in the music where they had to have something that splashed, so it went from leaders change course,
State leaders got us back on track.
One of the criticisms I had heard about this ad was that it didn't really say anything, and that's relatively fair. I mean, it seems like they're kicking off this campaign, but what we have to remember is that this is done by Americans for Prosperity Foundation, and the foundation is a nonprofit, so it can't be political in the same way that Americans for Prosperity can, because their donations are a tax write-off. They're only allowed to say certain things, which is why they had to be very, very vague. I'm not sure if that's a good thing. I'm not sure if spending a lot of money on an ad that goes on television, if you don't have a definitive direction, is the best idea. This is a really pretty ad. It has a lot of Alaska porn. Obviously, we kind of hit the high notes. Basically just the high notes in Alaska. If you want a really Alaskan commercial, you just film in Southeast Alaska. You get one shot of snow. That shot of Anchorage is kind of drab and boring. I would not have used it. Well, I guess they were trying to be dark and gloomy. So you can see here wasting $14 billion and, blank of your tax dollars. You can see the beginning of this ad is Southeast green. We move from Southeast green to being bright again. And then when they're talking about dark subjects, they make it very clear that it's dark. And then they jump back to bright again when they talked about how leaders change course. I guess what confuses me is that they spent money on this. It's very, I don't know why a group would promote an ad like this in the form of 15 seconds. It clearly didn't have enough time to actually resonate or say something All I know is that I feel really good when I watch it. I don't really get the gist. I think had they been advocating for the governor more directly, it would have made more sense. But again, because they're a nonprofit, they're allowed to do this. They're allowed to say Juneau lost its way. They're allowed to say that they were wasting $14 billion of our tax dollars. And leaders changed course. The reason they have to say leaders is because they can't call it anyone individually. They can't say what I'm assuming is them trying to thank Mike Dunleavy for the budget cuts. Their video came out in January 24th. So it's interesting looking at this 5 weeks after. And they've got a website here. I'm going to just about guarantee that the follow through from this ad onto the website, I don't think anyone had enough time to process what was going on. I think anyone watching this is going to assume that it was a bank commercial. It's just fun. It's fun, and there's very little substance to it. So, again, confused as to why you would do a large ad buy with this. I think it was a little bit too vague to go on to any sort of television. Definitely, Facebook is fine. And we can see from their ad, it looks like at least on the one that's public, there was 47,000, nearly 48,000 views. So they spent a fair amount of money to get it out because I don't think this thing had much organic movement. I don't think anyone would really share this. In 2012, there was a study done and they talked about different metrics that made something successful. The 4 things that made something viral, number 1 was anger. If it inspires anger, we're more likely to share it at 34%. The next 2, tied at 30% more likely to share it if this feeling is inspired in us, is practical value and awe. So this ended up being awe. This was really, really pretty in a very short time with a lot of drums. I've got to give a hats off for the music choice.
Means you're headed in the right direction. Juneau had lost its way, wasting $14 billion, your tax dollars. State leaders got us back on track. When government spends wisely, we all succeed. That's true north.
God, that's really good music. I mean, it's way too much energy to take seriously, but it's a lot of fun. I think that's one of the things that's a little bit confusing about this ad because it's so vague and because they couldn't say much because they're, very clearly a nonprofit. I don't understand the difference between Americans for Prosperity Foundation and Americans for Prosperity. So this is Americans for Prosperity Alaska, and this is Americans for Prosperity Foundation Alaska. And this could just be my own ignorance. I shouldn't assume, but it looks like they say that they're a nonprofit, and the foundation, they say they're a nonprofit. So I know that Facebook isn't the definitive source of who is or isn't a nonprofit, but if this one is a nonprofit, I pulled up their YouTube as well because it says AFP Alaska. This looks like their political attack arm.
Senator Begich hasn't always been straight with us.
We got an insurance plan now. You like it, you keep it.
This is an old one.
Now he is at it again.
I'm fighting against the carbon tax.
But Begich is on record.
So I don't know the difference between these two groups, but very clearly there's a reason that they're separated, and there's a reason that this ad says nothing. And the reason it says nothing is because I don't think they legally can. This is about as much as you can do. God, I wonder if it was just people saying it's time for Alaska to have an ad. It's all shot very well, except for the shot at Anchorage. I don't think this is good at all. All these photos of dogs, you could insert those in any single ad, and I think it would be a win. Especially now with the Iditarod, about to start. This is just a win for me. The whale doesn't make any sense. Zero justification or reason for it. 3 out of 4 of the last shots they have don't make any sense. The True North and showing the Northern Lights, sure. Again, don't really understand the campaign, but it's a pretty ad. It's well shot. It's just vague and a little bit nonsensical. I wonder who these people are. Are these stock people? Do we have stock people? I've never seen these people. This was probably just a bunch of royalty-free footage. Nobody shot anything. If anything, I'm looking at every single clip in here, and you can go to a royalty-free footage site and find those, type them in, and then you just need a production company that's able to put typography onto the top. Every time they're talking about something in a relatively positive tone, they're using this topographical font. Every time they're talking about something in a negative tone, they're using this wasted away kind of blood spatter font that they've got going on. In these 2 slides, you can really see it in the W and the A. You see wasting, and this one, Juneau lost its way. So in both of these, they have the blood spatter font. Oh, wait. Why did they do this? They use the blood spatter font again. there seems to be no rhyme or reason. Oh man, I tried to give them a lot more credit. If you have a font choice, it's a good idea to make it thematically linked with something, and it seems that there's no link with any of it here. It just kind of seems like it looked prettier in one scenario versus another, so they changed it. You know, this is kind of a weird review because I started this with the exact same feeling that I'm finishing it with. I don't know why this ad was made. It's vague. I don't really know what they're trying to get at. I don't know who they're trying to get to do anything. There just doesn't feel like there's a call to action in this video. If you were hoping for something more definitive, you didn't get it today. This is the feeling that we had at the beginning and that we're going to have at the end. Thanks so much for joining on the second episode of Cale Reviews, and join us again soon, either within the next month or kind of whenever I feel like putting one out. Actually, I know the next video I'm going to put out, I want to be able to talk about the best and the worst videos of 2018. So expect one of those to come out soon. Thanks so much for watching, and talk soon.